The New Orleans Saints secure the NFC's number 2 seed in their wild card appearance after a 33-7 victory over the Carolina Panthers. We'll recap it and take a look at the wild card matchup for the New Orleans Saints on this week's edition of What Just Happened here with Ross Jackson of the Canal Street Chronicles. The Saints win against the division rival Carolina Panthers 33-7, becoming the first NFC South team to ever completely sweep the division. The Saints going 6-0 against NFC South opponents. Again, first time in the history of the NFC South that has ever happened. They also clinched the number 2 seed in the NFC in the process, and they did it all without Alvin Kamara, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Latavius Murray, Michael Burton, or DJ Swearinger, amongst others, including Michael Thomas, Deontay Harris, and of course Marcus Williams, who are all also out with injuries in this game. But of course, the Saints being ravaged just before the game began, or at least early on, just ahead of the weekend due to COVID-19 related absences, but still find a way to win and still found a way to produce on the ground, putting up over 140 yards in the run game. The New Orleans Saints had several practice squad members get called up ahead of this game, including a couple of notable performances from some of those guys, including Austin Carr, 1 catch for 11 yards and a touchdown in the game. Grant Haley, who was a defensive back that ended up getting called up. He had about 25 career games with the New York Giants, signed with the Saints just ahead of the season, found his way out onto the field with all of the depleted secondary issues that the Saints have had throughout this game or heading into this game. He actually led the team in tackles with 6. He added a pass defense, a quarterback hit, and an interception as well. Started off a little shaky early on in the game, but found his way to being a little bit more comfortable and settled in. And of course, ended up with a takeaway in this one. The Saints, by the way, 5 interceptions in this game, which is tied for most in franchise history in a single contest, along with Haley, Malcolm Jenkins, Marshawn Lattimore, PJ Williams, and even Ken Crawley ended up with an interception in this one. One other notable undrafted free agent practice squad member that ended up getting called up with Tony Jones Jr., the running back from Notre Dame. Again, he was part of the tandem filling in for the missing running back room in this game. He had 3 carries for 13 yards before he had to leave with injury, unfortunately, but it was the tandem between him and Ty Montgomery, who had been tasked with filling in for Alvin Kamara. Ty Montgomery had a nice day, 18 carries for 105 yards. Didn't find his way into the end zone, but still averaged 5.8 carries on the day. And then you had a great day from Drew Brees, who might have just played his final regular season game of his career. Some reports coming out Sunday morning that everyone sort of is expecting that Drew Brees will retire after this season. Not a huge shock to anybody inside New Orleans or within the Who Dat Nation, but still something else to see that actually be listed out from somebody like Adam Schefter ahead of the game. But Drew Brees, if this was his final game of his career, a pretty good one, another 3-touchdown game, completed 69% of his passes for 201 yards. Those 3 touchdowns ended up going to Jared Cook, to Emmanuel Sanders, and then his final touchdown going to Austin Carr. Emmanuel Sanders was a pretty fun story to follow in this game. He came in 8 catches away from 60 catches on the season and a $500,000 incentive bonus based on that. And the Saints, Sean Payton, Drew Brees did everything they could to make sure that they got him there. They absolutely did, which ended up being a really nice moment. Emmanuel Sanders celebrating after the catch, but then also celebrating on the sideline along with Sean Payton, who clearly knew and had made an intent to make sure that Emmanuel Sanders got that 8th catch. That was pretty cool to see. He finished with 9 catches and just over 60 yards on the day, including the touchdown as well. Taysom Hill also added a touchdown in this one rushing touchdown. He ended up leaving before the game finished. However, he ended up leaving and being checked for a concussion. So more information to follow on that. We'll, of course, keep you updated over at CanalStreetChronicles.com. The Saints defense held Carolina to only 74 rushing yards with an average of 3.7 yards per carry. So the Saints reestablishing their dominance in the run game with a fully healthy defensive line for the first time in weeks. However, it is worth noting, of course, that Carolina trailed for most of this game, ended up having to get away from the run game, and then also didn't have either Mike Davis nor Christian McCaffrey available to them here. But still, a good performance from the Saints in the run game. More good performances from them in the passing game as well. 2 interceptions forced to Teddy Bridgewater, 3 to PJ Walker, who had to come in relief of Bridgewater after Teddy had to leave with a lower leg injury. We also got to see former New Orleans Saints 7th round pick Tommy Stevens, the guy that was essentially going to be the next Taysom Hill in the Saints offense, after they ended up moving on from him at trying to sort of move him to tight end, and then they ended up releasing him. He signed with Carolina and found his way out onto the field. And Carolina found some pretty effective ways to utilize them. Some nice cuts to Taysom Hill over on the sideline, kind of smiling and kind of appreciating what he was seeing from Tommy Stevens, who he did get to spend some time with while he was on the roster. He had 4 carries for 24 yards, 6 yards per attempt there, but no passing attempts at all in this game. So something to keep an eye out for next year. Joe Brady, Matt Rule looking like they're ready to include that Taysom Hill sort of hybrid Swiss Army knife into their offense as well, and might have found the right guy to do it. Carolina converted, though, on just 1 third down in this game, 1 of 4 as well in the red zone, including throwing 2 interceptions in the end zone on those possessions. They forced 0 turnovers. The Saints, again, along with their 5 interceptions, also forced 2 additional turnovers on downs as well. So the scoring opportunities were simply limited for Carolina, and the Saints ended up getting a lot of pressure. I know Marcus Davenport had several pressures, and you had a couple of other players that had multiple pressures, but Trey Hendrickson ended up with a sack. He'll finish the season with 13.5, tied for second place in the NFL, just behind TJ Watt and tied with Aaron Donald. Carl Granderson also added 2 sacks. He'll finish the season with 3. So now that this 33-7 divisional win is in the books for the New Orleans Saints and they've secured their number 2 seed, they'll head back to New Orleans and get ready to host the Chicago Bears next weekend for the wild card round. This will be the 3rd time that the Saints and Bears have met in the playoffs. Previously, the Saints are 0-2 in those matchups. However, this will be the first time that the Saints will host the playoff game instead of having to travel to Soldier Field to compete there. The Saints game is going to be on Sunday at 3:40 p.m. Central Time. So the NFL doing a little bit of a favor for the New Orleans Saints, because this does mean that as long as Alvin Kamara doesn't exhibit any symptoms at any point throughout the week, reports are that he's feeling fine, so very good news there. But as long as he doesn't exhibit any symptoms, he will be available to return to the team, although he'll have to do so without any practice that week. The Saints would also be eligible to return Michael Thomas, Deontay Harris, Latavius Murray, Michael Burton, and potentially Dwayne Washington as well. Should everything go well, all of those players would be available to return over on the offensive side. In the meanwhile, safety CJ Gardner-Johnson, DJ Swearinger, and hopefully Marcus Williams, who's been battling with an ankle injury that he's been trying to recover from, might also be available for them over on the defensive side. So obviously a very important win for the New Orleans Saints. And even though they don't lock up the number 1 seed, locking up the number 2 seed still means that they only go on the road if they face the Green Bay Packers in the conference championship game, which would mean that otherwise the New Orleans Saints can stay home for their first 2 matchups in the wild card and divisional rounds. And we'll see what the rest of the NFC shapes out to be, where the Saints could potentially end up hosting a conference championship game again as well. So remember to let us know your reactions to this win for the Saints. They looked pretty good, and you know they're getting a lot of weapons back ahead of this wild card matchup against the Chicago Bears. So let us know what you thought about this win. Let us know what you think about the upcoming matchup, and drop your score predictions below in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on notifications so you're notified anytime that a new episode and a new video is uploaded here at the Canal Street Chronicles YouTube page. As always, check us out over at canalstreetchronicles.com, and we'll be back with you next week for another edition of What Just Happened after the Saints and Bears face off in the wild card round.